Hey guys, it's Ms. Damaso. We're going to go over our midterm review number 4 over partitioning, distance, and midpoints. So you're going to watch this video on these 5 questions, take notes as you go through, and then when you are finished, you're going to take your 5-question Quizlet on Canvas over this same idea, and there'll be similar questions to the ones here. So let's get ourselves started. So number 1 says the point 8, 10 is the midpoint between -8 and -17 and what other point? So it's saying if I have two endpoints, the midpoint the midpoint 8, 10 is right in the middle, and you have to find the other endpoint. So whenever I do problems like these, I always like to draw a picture because I think it helps me kind of visualize what's happening. So 8, 10 is the midpoint. So that's going to be right in the middle, which makes these two pieces congruent. One of the endpoints is -8, -17. And then the other midpoint is what I'm trying to find over here, my x and y values. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the distance here, and then I'm just going to copy the same distance over here because these two pieces are congruent. Midpoint means right in the middle of the two. So that kind of helps me out as I work through here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at my x values. So if I look at my first x value for the first endpoint, I start at -8 and then I move to +8. So I say to myself, okay, how many places did I move, right? How many coordinates did I move to get from -8 to +8? Well, I had to add 8 to get myself to 0 and then another 8. So in total, I added 16 to my x values. Well, since this is the midpoint, it's right in the middle, I'm going to do the exact same thing to figure out what my new x value is going to be. I'm going to add 16. So 8 plus 16 gives me 24. So my x value is 24. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my y's. It's that easy. I started at -17 and I worked my way to 10. So I'm going from negative to positive, so I have to add. To get from -17 just to 0, I have to add 17, and then to get from 0 to 10, I add another 10. So in total, I'm adding 27. So I'm adding 27 to my y values. Again, since it's the midpoint, I'm going to do the same thing. So 10 plus 27 gives me 37. So the coordinates for my new endpoint are at 24, 37. I always make sure I put my x value first. Number 2. The coordinates of the endpoints of A, B are A is -2, -5, and B is 4, 3. What are the coordinates of point C that divides AB such that AC to CB is equal to 1, 3 ratio? So anytime you see a ratio problem like that where they give you the coordinates, that means you are partitioning. Now, if you remember our partition formula, we always draw ourselves a picture. We take, for both our x and our y values, we take the middle minus the first over the last minus the middle, and we set that equal to our ratio. So I'm going to start by drawing a picture, because again, if I draw a picture, it makes my life a little bit easier. So let's see. I'm going to draw myself a segment here. So the endpoints are A, B. So here's A, here's B. A is -2, -5, and B is 4, 3. So I'm trying to find the partition point P. Actually, what is it? Partition point C, excuse me. I'm trying to find the x and the y coordinate. That divides it into a ratio of 1 to 3. So that means this piece is worth 1, this piece is worth 3. In total, you have 1 plus 3. You have 4 pieces in total. So I'm going to do my x's first. I'm going to do middle minus first over last minus middle. So this is your first. This is your middle piece, or middle point. This is your last piece. Okay, so middle minus first, x minus -2 over last minus middle, 4 minus x. Set that equal to my ratio, which is 1 to 3. And now it's just a little bit of algebra. I'm going to have to do some cross multiplication here. So I know that minus and negative really makes this positive. So I'm going to do 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 1 times 4 minus x. Now it's just a little bit of algebra. I'm going to start by distributing. So 3 times x gives me 3x. 3 times 2 gives me 6. 1 times 4 gives me 4. 1 times negative x gives me negative x. Now when I get all my x's to one side, so I add x on both sides. Run out of space. 4x plus 6 equals 4. My next step is to get the x by itself, so I subtract 6 from both sides. I come over here, I get 4x equals, so 4 minus 6 gives me negative 2, and then I divide by 4. So my x value is negative 1/2. Now I did it for the x's, I still have to do it for the y's. So now that I know I'm going to use up that much space, oh my goodness. So I'm going to do it for the y's. So middle minus first over last minus middle. So middle is y minus negative 5 over last minus middle is 3 minus y. Again, set it equal to my ratio, which stays the same. It's 1 over 3. Now I know minus and negative really makes this into a positive, and then I'm going to cross multiply. So 3 times y plus 5 equals 1 times 3 minus y. And now again, it is some algebra. So 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times negative y is negative y. I get all my y's to the same side, so I add y on both sides. I get 15 equals 3. Oops, my bad. 3y plus y should have been 4y. I don't know why I did that. Oops. Okay, got my y's by themselves on the left here, so I'm going to move over this 15 from the left to the right. So I get 4y equals, so 3 minus 15 is negative 12. Divide by 4, divide by 4. I get y equals negative 3. So now the final coordinates of point C, if I write them out as coordinates, my final coordinates for point C are negative 1/2 for my x, or negative 0.5, and then negative 3 for my y. Sorry, I kind of crunched that all up really, really small there in that one. Okay, number 3. The coordinates of endpoint QR are Q is negative 3, negative 10, and R is 1, 2. Point P is on QR. The coordinates of P are 0, negative 1. What is the ratio of QP to PR? So this time, I'm giving you all the coordinates. You have to figure out what is the ratio. So just like the last problem, I'm going to start by drawing myself a picture. So it's always the best choice. So I've got my segment here. QR are the endpoints, so Q is going to be one of them, R is the other, and it says point P is on it somewhere. Put a point P. Now I'm going to write in the coordinates. Negative 3, negative 10. R is 1, 2. And P is 0, negative 1. So just like the last problem, I'm still going to follow the rule. I'm going to do middle minus first over last minus middle, except this time I'm going to have all the numbers here, and I'm just going to figure out what the ratio is. So if I look just at my x values, middle minus first is 0 minus negative 3 over last minus middle is 1 minus 0. So this just becomes a little bit of quick math here. 0 minus negative 3 is the same as 0 plus 3, which is 3. 1 minus 0 is 1. So my ratio is 3 to 1. I'm going to do it with the y's just to check and make sure, but I should get the same thing. For my y values, middle minus first, so -1 minus -10, over last minus middle, 2 minus -1. Okay, be really careful with all your negative signs there. -1 minus -10 really becomes +10, so -1 plus 10 is 9. 2 minus -1 is really 2 plus 1, which is 3. So it's 9 over 3, which I can reduce to 3 over 1. So my ratio of QP, that is the first part, which is my first number, is 3. My second piece is 1, so my ratio is 3 to 1. All right, next problem, number 4. Find the coordinates of point A on CD, that is 3/4 of the distance from C to D. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just gonna write the coordinates of these 2 points, because if I don't have, again, like a nice picture drawn for me, it's really hard to do anything. So point C, if I do the coordinates, I go to the left 4, down 1, so this is -4, or excuse me, yep, -1. And then my point D over here is I go over 4, up 3, so it's 4, 3. And I'm trying to figure out somewhere in the middle here I should have an X, Y. So I'm just going to use this actually as my picture this time. Now, it says 3/4 of the distance from C to D. Now, if I think about that logically, 3 of the 4 pieces should be right here, which means what's left over is only 1 piece. So if I were to write, sorry about that, that's my grandfather clock. If I were to write, think about it this way. So here's 1 piece, 2 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces in total, right? So if I'm writing that as a fraction, this section here is 3 out of the 4. But if I'm talking about pieces, it's 3 pieces versus the 1 piece that's right here. So the ratio I'm going to use for this is going to be 3 to 1. Okay, so now I'm going to do just like I did before for my other problems. I'm going to do my x's first, then I'll do my y's. So my x's are going to be middle minus first over last minus middle. So x minus, my first is -4, oops, sorry, over last minus middle, 4 minus x, and I set that equal to my ratio, which we said is 3 to 1. Okay, just like the other problems, I am now going to do some cross multiplication. X minus -4 is x plus 4. Cross multiply, I've got 1 times x plus 4 equals 3 times 4 minus x. I'm going to do my distribution here. 1 times x is x. 1 times 4, 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times -x is -3x. Now just a little bit of algebra. Get all my x's to the same side. I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I get 4x plus 4 equals 12. Subtract 4 from both sides to get the variable by itself. 4x equals 8. Divide both sides by 4. I get x equals 8 divided by 4, which is 2. So my first coordinate for the x is x equals 2. Now I'm going to do my y values. So middle, sorry, kind of janky, I'm doing this at home. Middle minus first, so y minus -1 over last minus middle, 3 minus y. Equals my ratio. I keep it the same. It's 3 over 1. Okay, I'm going to cross multiply. First thing, minus a negative becomes plus. I do 1 times y plus 1 equals 3 times 3 minus y. Now I distribute. 1 times y is y. 1 times 1 is 1. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative y is negative 3y. Get all my variables to the same side, so I'm going to add 3y to both sides. I get 4y plus 1 equals 9. Now I get all my constants to the other side, so I subtract 1. I get 4y equals 8. Divide both sides by 4 to get the y by itself. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So my final coordinates for a point that is 3/4 of the way from C to D is point 2, 2. And so actually if I come up here to my picture, here's 2, 2. I see that it's right on the graph, which is great. So this is worth 3 pieces. This is worth 1 piece. And in total, that is 4 pieces. So my final point is 2, 2. Okay, last problem. What is the coordinate of the point 1/4 of the way from A to B? So just like the last problem, it's the same idea, except this time instead of me having a graph, I just have the points given to me. Again, we think about if it's 1 out of 4 pieces, right? 1. So here are my 4 pieces. 1 out of the 4 is being used right here. So what's left over, there are 3 pieces here. So my ratio is going to be 1 to 3. Now, when I draw my picture here, I put A to B, so my point A is over here. My point B is over here, so my A is -2, -3. I'm trying to find my XY right here. And then my point B is -6, -1. So now that I have a picture, now that I have a picture, kind of a picture, I can use this picture to help me out with my problem. So I always, like I said, draw a directed line segment. I always put my first piece on the left, my second piece on the right, and then your X, Y, whatever you're trying to find, that partition point is somewhere in the center there. So I'm gonna do my X's first. Middle minus first, X minus -2 over last minus middle, -6 minus X. Set it equal to your ratio, not the fraction. Your ratio is 1/3. Okay, and then it becomes your favorite, my favorite, algebra. Minus a -2 becomes plus. Now I'm going to cross multiply. So 3 times X plus 2 equals 1 times -6 minus X. Now I've got to do a little bit of distribution. So 3 times X is 3X. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times -6 is -6. 1 times -X is -X. Get all my X's to the same side, so I'm going to add my X. I get 4X plus 6 equals -6. My next step is get all the constants to the other side, so I'm going to bring them to the right. Subtract 6 from both sides. I get 4X equals, so -6 minus 6 gives me -12. And then divide both sides by 4. You get X equals -3. So there's my X value. Now I'm going to do the same thing for my Y values. Okay, so middle minus first, Y minus -3 over last minus middle, -1 minus Y equals, the ratio should stay the same of 1 to 3. I'm going to move my paper a little here. All right, just like the last problem, I'm going to start by doing some algebra here and doing some cross multiplication. y minus negative 3 really becomes y plus 3. So when I multiply diagonally or cross multiply here, I've got 3 times y plus 3. And I set that equal to 1 times negative 1 minus y. Running out of space. All right. Do some distribution. 3 times y is 3y. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 1 times negative y is negative y. Get all my y's to the same side, so I'm going to add y to both sides. So 3y plus y gives me 4y. Bring down my plus 9 equals negative 1. Next thing I'm going to do is get the y by itself, so I move the constant. I subtract 9 from both sides. I get 4y equals negative 10, right? Because negative 1 minus 9 gives me negative 10. And then divide both sides by 4. Now that's not a whole number here, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction, but negative 10 divided by 4, I can reduce that fraction. I can divide both of the numbers by 2. So if I divide negative 10 by 2, I get negative 5. And if I divide 4 by 2, I get 2. So your final answer is that your partition point, the coordinates, are negative 3, comma, negative 5 over 2. So your final answer is negative 3, negative 5 over 2. And be really careful that you are making sure you put your x value first, your y value second. So hopefully this helped you out, and now you should be ready to do your partitioning assignment online on Canvas, 5 questions. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Thanks. Have a great day.